Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here to break down the 2-game NBA playoff slate on Tuesday. If you're a first-time viewer, welcome to my channel. I make content for Draftkings, for Prize Picks, and NBA Top Shot. If you guys are looking for more in-depth content, I do offer that on Patreon.com. We've had a really good playoffs, and it continued tonight with a lot of big wins. Josiah just had a third place finish in USFL yesterday. Follows it up with a third place in the $100 single entry. I was close to him, but he beat me out. But yeah, huge night for him. Congrats there. John with a takedown in the showdown. 10x night. You'll love to see it. Few other big winners. Gabe a solid, 2-3x. Yeah, it was a great night all around. So again, guys, if you are looking for more in-depth content, check out my Patreon linked down below. And the sponsor of this video, guys, is SuperDraft. SuperDraft, you can use my discount code DKDFS when you deposit $50 or more. That is linked down below. And I'll have some content up for SuperDraft here shortly, but it's super fun. They offer player prop contest. Also, they offer multiplier contest. Basically, how it works is the good players, like John, Steph, usually around a 1x multiplier. So they're usually right around 1. Whereas you scroll down to kind of the bench guys, they'll get, 1.9x, for example, for Gary Payton, 2x for some of these guys that are probably not going to play. But that's where this Super Draft gets a little bit different. And they offered pretty decent sized contests. There will be some overlay as well. So like I said, guys, if you want to try it out, use the code DKDFS on a deposit, $50 or more. Again, linked down below. All right, so let's get into the video. Really quick, though, we got to recap my lineup tonight. So, oh, it was so close. I was sweating the showdown slate. It was so close, but yeah, no ejections. With no bad variance, once again, another amazing night. 3x in the $100 single entry there, finished 16th. And then in the showdown here, let's go over that really quick. Was so close. I just needed a few more points from Ayton. I finished 16th in the big contest. I only entered that. It was like a $15 entry or whatever. I had Luka in the captain, who I was all over. Obviously, that's not a contrarian take, but I was all about Booker over Paul. That worked out in a big way. Jay Crowder, too. Fader's got a little bit bailed out with the foul trouble again for him. I went to Campaign and McGee at low ownership. They both worked out in a big way. And then Ayton, again, I needed a couple more points from Ayton. So I was at 258. The winning lineup, I guess it was a little bit higher, 267. Oh, it's because the Bridges. You had like 8 Bridges garbage time free throws. So it was like it was like a 3-point difference when I checked with like a few seconds left. But yeah, I forgot about Mikal Bridges hitting like 20 garbage time free throws. Yeah, showdown was great. Again, came very close to the big money there. And then the main slate, again, was really solid as well. Nice 3x, nothing crazy, but having Harden obviously hurt a bit, but he was pretty popular. Yeah, over half the field faded Luka. Remember, there are people saying you can't play Luka against Mikal Bridges. Those are probably the same people that said Jiren Jackson Jr. didn't have a ceiling, right? Luka going for 75, obviously an absolute must. Again, Harden was a letdown. The game was a blowout. So I talked about this. I mentioned it in my YouTube video, and I talked about this a good amount on Patreon, how I thought there was a chance that first game would blow out. And if you wanted to, kind of stack the second game, maybe get to a Valley piece or two or look to Bam that you could in the first game. And a lot of people ended up doing that, and it paid off in a big way because the first game blew out. Again, this Philadelphia team is pretty bad without Embiid. But can we also talk about Doc Rivers? Okay, Paul Reed faders. Don't get me started with the Paul Reed faders. He's on pace to break the slate, picks up 3 fouls, loses a good chunk of minutes there in the first half, picks up his 4th right away, right to the bench, comes in, picks up his 5th right away, right to the bench, looking like he's going to check in for garbage time with 5 minutes left. I'm like, yes, let's go. Reed really going to punish the faders here in garbage time. dust off Charles Bassey. He plays garbage time. Just Reed played like 12 minutes. I was so tilted about that. But yeah, Bam Adebayo was a smash. He was one of the few players that did well in that game. So what I was also talking about a lot on Patreon, well, I wanted to go underweight on the chalk Miami Heat value. The reason was Oladipo being in that rotation. That was a big difference because Oladipo's a high usage guy. So, right when we got the ownership and I saw 60% Struss, I'm like, I'm totally fine not having that, a score independent player who, him and Vince are going to lose usage to Oladipo. So that worked out in a big way, fading a massive chalk Struss. Again, Crowder was also on pace for a huge night. He got in foul trouble again. He's just getting in foul trouble every single game. And then Payne and McGee were solid as well. So that's a look back for me, guys. It was a really, really good night overall in the main and the showdown slate. Good night for Patreon members as well. Hoping to keep that going. But let's talk about this two-game slate. We'll start off with Milwaukee and Boston. So what I want to say first is you're going to see a lot of overreactions. We have seen it throughout the playoffs, right? And you're going to see it in game 2 here, right? People are going to overreact to what happened in game 1, especially with one player in that Golden State game who we'll talk about. But, let's start off again with Milwaukee. So Giannis said it'll come about 11-4. I have absolutely no issue paying the price point for him. He's going to play around 40 minutes. He didn't have the best shooting game, but still went for 64. I mean, that's the type of ceiling Giannis has. I know Boston's good defensively, but, no one can really stick with Giannis. So have no issue if you want to pay that price point for him. Drew Holiday was very low owned. He was like 5% owned in the main slate. Not going to happen now, right? He'll be a little bit more popular, as he should be. He's going to be, the second guy behind Giannis, the Robin to his Batman. So I think Drew Holiday is a solid option here. He's probably playing close to 40 minutes. He's a guy that can stuff the stat sheet as well as, Giannis. So I think both the main Milwaukee guys look pretty good. Now in the mid-range, we have Portis 6'3", kind of just indifferent on him. I played him last game. He was solid. I expect 30 to 35 minutes from Bobby Portis. He's a good rebounder. He's gone for double-digit rebounds now in the last 4 games. So no issue going there. I think Brook Lopez at 4'8" is also one I'm kind of just like, it's fine. He'll play 25 to 30 minutes, played 28 minutes last game. Yeah, it's okay, right? I don't love it, don't hate it. Grayson Allen, 4'7". I think this is a solid option. He's relatively scoring dependent, but he's going to have open looks, right? With what Giannis does, you're going to have open 3 looks for Grayson Allen, and he's been shooting the ball well. So prices come down a bit. He was 5.2K a couple sites ago. Now he's at 4.7. He also has shooting guard, small forward eligibility. So I'm more inclined to play Grayson Allen in this slate than I was previous slates. So I think he's a totally fine option. Pat Connaughton, maybe a little bit safer, about $1,000 cheaper than Allen. Maybe not as high of a ceiling, but since he's about $1,000 cheaper, I think he's a little bit safer. Connaughton, decent rebounder, also can knock down some threes. He shot it better a bit of late, 7-11 and 3-6 in the last couple games. And then I will unfortunately mention Wes Matthews. It's not a fun roster at all, but he's probably playing mid to high 20s minutes. He is only 3-3, but Wes Matthews has this type of floor, right? He can get you like 4 fantasy points in 25 minutes, but at close to min price for a guy that's a pretty big part of his rotation, yeah, he's fine. No, I'm not considering Javon Carter. I'm not going there. All right, on the Boston side, so here's what I'm talking about. We're probably going to see some overreaction. So Tatum was like 70% owned last slate, and he kind of busted, right? He did not shoot well. I can almost guarantee you that ownership's going to drop. I'm fine going to Tatum, though, on this one, with ownership most likely dropping. He did not shoot well, 6 of 18. Now, Milwaukee did do a solid job on him defensively, but Tatum's going to play like over 40 minutes, and he is their go-to guy. So I like Jason Tatum. I think Brown's fine. My only downside of the Brown is, like I said, he's kind of dealing with that hammy. Hammy's always just worried me, but he should play around 40 minutes. He looks okay. Marcus Smart, keep an eye on this. This is obviously massive news. I think he's going to tough it out. Marcus Smart's a pretty tough guy. I think he's going to play dealing with that quad, but we'll see. If he does play, I think he'll be relatively low owned because people are going to be worried about the injury, but like I said, Smart is tough. I think if he plays, he's just playing normal minutes, so I wouldn't mind going to Smart if he ends up playing. And then Horford, surprisingly, he played a lot more than I thought. He played 36 minutes. Obviously, he's a good defender. He can defend Giannis. So as long as there's no foul trouble and we get 30-plus minutes from Horford, I do like him here at 5'8", because Down the stretch there against Brooklyn, he was losing minutes. But if we're going to get, mid-30s minutes from Horford, I think it makes him a pretty solid play. Now, Robert Williams, I thought he would play more. He only played 22 minutes, dealt with a little bit of foul trouble. Williams is going to be productive when he's on the court. Just a question of how many minutes does he play. So could technically, for example, like Horford could lose minutes if Robert Williams plays really well, or maybe Grant Williams loses minutes. So I think they'll kind of go with the hot hand, but like I said, they did close with Grant Williams and Horford in the front court instead of Robert Williams. That doesn't mean it's going to happen again. You could very easily see a game where Robert Williams pushes for 30 minutes. So definitely someone I'm still interested in there at a 4.9K price. And I mentioned Grant Williams. He closed. He still played 29 minutes. I'm expecting at least 25 or so. He's not a very good point per minute guy, but he can knock down those corner threes, which I think makes him firmly in play here for value. Derek White's at 3.8. I mean, minutes are a little bit more in question for him. Could he play over 20? Yeah, it's possible. But I think more often than not, he's probably playing in the 15-minute range, which makes him a riskier tournament play. Now, obviously, if Marcus Smart is out, I would assume it's Derek White that moves in the starting lineup. And if that's the case, you just play 100% Derek White. Also, Pritchard, if there's no Marcus Smart, would get a pretty big minutes bump as well. So he would look great if Smart's out. But like I said, I'm expecting Marcus Smart to play. And then Tice played only like 4 minutes, so no interest in going to Daniel Tice. All right, and then Golden State and Memphis. So here's what I'm saying. You're going to see the overreactions, right? So last slate, Jordan Poole was 10% owned. 10% Jordan Poole. He's not going to be 10% owned again. Now, here's the thing, right? Absolutely nothing has changed with Jordan Poole. There's nothing that has changed other than he had a really good game. And now you're going to see a very big ownership increase, right? There's nothing that changed from last game to now. Nothing. And his ownership's going to go way up because of that one big game. Now, I still think Poole's a solid play, but I'm very curious to see how popular he will be after that big game because he was extremely low on last game. And like I said, there's nothing that has changed with Jordan Poole. So, going to be interesting to see what his ownership ends up at. I would say at least 2 to 3x of what he was last night. He was 10% owned last slate. Steph Curry at 9-1, on the other hand, had a subpar game, still played big minutes, but he is the guy of the guards that has the highest ceiling, in my opinion. If you, on average, Steph Curry, obviously Poole had a big game last game, but, you play 10 games, Steph Curry is going to outperform Clay and Poole in most of those games. So I think Steph Curry still looks pretty good here. And 9.1K feels a little bit underpriced for him. The only downside with Curry, though, is, like I said, Golden State, they have a lot of guys that can do damage. Obviously, Clay and Poole can score the ball. Gary Payton's played well. Draymond can, obviously distribute. So Wiggins is a solid player overall. So that's the only downside with Curry is, we'll talk about Ja on the other side. Ja is really relied upon to do kind of everything. Where Steph, if he's struggling a bit, he can rely on his other options like Clay, like Poole, those other guys. And Klay Thompson himself, I would guess he's going to be the lowest owned now of the bunch. Just had a not so good shooting game, a 6 of 19. So here's the thing, right? In tournaments, I would rather go to Klay Thompson over Jordan Poole. And the reason is I just think Jordan Poole is going to be a lot more popular after that big game. And while I think, obviously, Poole's a good play, like I said, I think his ownership is going to be a lot higher than it was last game. And then Draymond at 6.5, I like him once again. Faders got bailed out with a BS ejection. I'm still pissed about that because it would have been another big night for me had he not got ejected. But, again, Draymond's going to do everything for the team. Memphis is not great defensively. So I like Draymond a good amount here at 6.5. I think Wiggins is a relatively safe play. Outside of the game when I finally play him, he usually plays over 30 minutes. Again, I finally buy in against Denver. No foul trouble. 24 minutes for Wiggins. But yeah, Wiggins, not a super high ceiling, but probably going to get you somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30 fantasy points. I think he's a pretty similar play to what Dorian Finney-Smith was tonight. And then off the bench, Porter 3.7. With Iguodala still out, I think he's probably playing around 20 minutes. Played a bit more last game because Draymond obviously got ejected, but I think he's a fair value. And then Gary Payton started last game. If he starts again, I think he's a pretty good value. He also dealt with some foul trouble, so he only played 23 minutes. But Payton's, produces when he's on the court. So I like Payton quite a bit if he starts again. And then I'll mention Looney. He played a bit more last game, obviously because of the Draymond ejection. I think on average, he's just going to play the backup 5, maybe even a little bit less. So 3.2K, maybe we get, 10 to 12 minutes from Looney. All right, we'll finish up with Memphis. So John Morant is at 10-1. I mean, I played him at very low ownership. Again, I played him at 15% ownership last slate. I can guarantee you he's not going to be 15% owned. This is what I'm talking about with, overreactions to one game. However, like I said with Ja, he's going to be relied upon to do everything. And he has a super high floor because he's rebounding the ball at a good rate. He's obviously dishing out a lot of assists. And when he has a decent scoring night, he can break the slate like he did last game. So I like Ja a good amount here. However, like I said, unfortunately, I'm not going to get 15% owned Ja like he did last slate. Desmond Bain at 6'7", so he is listed as questionable with the sore back. I would say 95% chance he plays, but we'll keep an eye on it. Now with Bain, he had a bad game because he didn't shoot the ball well. And that can happen with Desmond Bain, right? If he's not hitting his shots, he does have the floor. But, if he's shooting the ball well, this is also his ceiling. So no issue if you want to play Bain in a tournament setting. And here's another one, right? Jiren Jackson Jr. I've played him, outside of that last game. That was the first time I finally faded. Of course, he had another big game. But all these games, I've played Jiren Jackson at like 5 to 10% ownership. He's not going to be that low owned again because of back-to-back big games. So it's going to come down to how popular do I think Jiren Jackson Jr. is. Because when I want to play Jiren Jackson Jr. is when he's going to be very low owned. And that's why I was all over him for that stretch of time, and he kept getting in foul trouble, which tilts me beyond belief. Because with Jiren Jackson Jr., he is a lot of the time in foul trouble. So if Jiren Jackson Jr. is going to be a popular play tomorrow, I want none of it. I want absolutely none of chalk Jiren Jackson Jr. if he is in fact going to be chalk. If he's going to be relatively low owned again, that's when I want to play Jiren Jackson Jr. So obviously the ceiling is there. And he can hurt you, though, if he gets in foul trouble like he did for basically the first 5 games of that Minnesota series. I think Clark is your much safer play. Probably a little bit. I think Jiren Jackson Jr. has the higher ceiling, but I think Clark has a little bit of a higher floor. He's not really a guy that deals with foul trouble much. He's going to play around 30 minutes. He played 31 last game, so I think Clark's a pretty safe play, where Jiren Jackson is more the ceiling play. And then Dylan Brooks. I mean, my God, was that an awful shooting game from him. He was also in foul trouble. I mean, I played, he just, airballed, 3 shots. Come on, right? But I think that'll keep him pretty low owned based on an awful shooting game. Brooks can still go for 35 if he has a decent shooting game, right? Decent shooting game here, 9 of 19, 34 fantasy points. Decent shooting game, 10 of 20, 31 fantasy points. The downside, like I said, though, he's score independent. So if he struggles with a shot like last game, he can hurt you. But he's going to play big minutes as long as you know foul trouble, because he's one of their best defenders. Now, the value, this is where I don't know what to do with Melton, because he was DNP last couple of games of the series, and then he played very well, and he got extended and played 25 minutes. I don't think he plays 25 minutes again. I think on average with Melton in the rotation, we're probably getting 15-ish minutes, which makes him playable. Melton is a relatively high usage player when he's on the court. So I just I don't know what to do here. It's going to be interesting to see what his ownership comes out to as well. But obviously Melton is playable. I don't think we get 25 minutes again from him. Like I said, I think, on average around 15. And then with Melton playing very well, it was Tyus Jones that really saw that minutes decrease. But I think if Melton struggles, or if Tyus Jones plays a little bit better off the bench, you could go back to around 20 minutes from Jones. Again, Golden State is a small ball team, so you could technically see Memphis close with one of those guards. So both Melton and Jones are in play. Slow-mo, Kyle Anderson at 3.7. We should see, 15 to 20 minutes from him. More of a secondary value. And that's it. I don't think I'm going to consider Xavier Tillman at 3.2, who's going to start, but most likely going to play 10 to 12 minutes. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for the video. Again, if you do enjoy the YouTube videos, just make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Appreciate everyone watching the content. As always, guys, let's hope for another big night, and I'll see you all in the next video.